Good afternoon. My name is Haisa. I am Salpa on film. Thank you so much for being here. It really means a lot to me and to my kababayans. Hello po, maraming salamat po. This is for you.
Stefanos, I think the first thing that struck me about the film, like the first time I watched it, is just the energy that is present, both in the movement sequences but also the visual language. Could you share a little bit about how you created this energy? Was it something you were intentional to construct and put in the film, or was it something that kind of subconsciously bubbled up?
First of all, thanks everyone for coming and staying. I like the word energy because I think there's a beauty when you slow down, and if you felt challenged, that's good. You know, I hope that I was trying to make something that was different and could perhaps transcend the normal way of making a film. And I think that if you look at these women and their stories, they live this contrasted life of Monday to Saturday, working in this home, very restricted. They feel very stagnated, and then on Sunday, they go out and dance like there's no tomorrow. And I wanted to find a more direct and visual way to show that, and perhaps to allow you all to feel it a bit more directly. So that's why sort of that we have this stills and motion interplay. Yeah, that answer your question?
Yeah. I think also you mentioned the idea of restriction, or I suppose freedom, or the absence of it, plays throughout the entire film. I think not just in the domestic workers, you also contrast that with the freedom in terms of the Hong Kong citizens, but also I think the freedom of women in general. I mean, even the lady employer, she also struggles in her conceptions of freedom. So could you maybe share that? And I think maybe even Miles and Sizer can comment on this idea of freedom present in the film.
I mean, well, from my point of view, it was important to show that there's, you know, this Hong Kong prides itself for having many working mothers, and that's something they are sort of advertised to the world. And there's a price behind that. There's a class of people that are making that happen, but then there's also the working mothers of Hong Kong have their own struggles, and it's not, you know, I didn't want to make such a black and white kind of villain hero story. I thought there was more nuance to it. But yeah, I think the father character is very funny to me because he sort of doesn't realize any of this is happening. He's just sort of living his life. But we wanted to capture that nuance as best we could.
And I think somehow like we all can relate to any of those characters in real life because we all are stuck at some point. And I think with my character in there, she's a free-spirited person, but at some point like she's trying to hide something. So I think there's this part of the scene where H asks her whether she likes men or women, and for Sampa, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to her as long as she finds happiness to it.
As for me, I grew up. I was born and raised in the Philippines, and Philippines is a democratic country. But then, for Filipinos like me, sometimes we don't have that freedom to pursue our passion. And there was also a point in my life where I had to focus on my obligations in my family, providing financially. And I felt really stuck during those times because I was even asking God why can't I do what I really want in life, like my friends in school, stuff like that. And my life is like almost similar to other Filipinos, especially our domestic workers, where for sure they all have their own dreams, but they don't have a choice. That's why they had to go to Hong Kong, Singapore, Dubai to work as domestic workers because there's not much choice in the Philippines. There is no one that they can depend on to provide for their family. And that's why I also agreed on doing this film because I can relate to the character.
Yeah, and I think the sacrifices you're talking about by all the women really in Hong Kong and around the world, of course, but especially these domestic workers, is silent. No one asks. Many people don't care. When we were making the film, many people just they were like, "Why do you want to explore that? Who cares? They're maids. Like we know they dance, But I thought that there is so much dignity. Not that they should suffer in silence, and actually many of them don't if you sort of peel back the curtain and look, but they have so much resilience and dignity in the way that they release that energy through dance and through their fun Sundays. That was contagious. I thought that had something that anyone could take away a lesson from. Whether you're a woman or man, whether you're from Hong Kong, whether you're a domestic worker, anyone I thought could identify with that.
Maybe at this point, Stephanos, you're Chinese Greek, and I think in these days there's a lot of conversation revolving on the topic of representation, and rightfully so. How did you kind of grapple with the responsibility of representing this community faithfully, and did you struggle with any of the deliberations throughout the process?
Absolutely, and I struggle today. My biggest fear is that someone's going to say, stand up and say that was mistranslated. That wasn't you're misrepresenting. I tried to get out of the way as much as I could, and I don't speak Tagalog, so obviously it would be foolish to try and write dialogue, for instance. It also felt, we didn't have resources. We just had each other. We had. And they did so much more than act, right? So we just all pulled together, and the things that I didn't know, I asked them. The things they didn't know, they asked domestic workers, and it felt more of a team effort in that way. But I also think that there is an outsider's touch to it too, right? I was eventually intending for this film to not only be shown in Hong Kong or Philippines. And I love, in New York where I'm from, people have not even known they exist. And I'm very proud that maybe because of this film, they see, they go to a hospital or they see some service industry worker from the Philippines, and they just sort of think for a moment that they're not only their job description. Nobody wants to just be their job description. And I think these women, OFWs in general, are always just, flattened into a job. And so I'm proud that we've taken that message outside of the obvious places.
Yeah, maybe Miles and Sizer, could you guys comment on the collaboration with Stephanos?
So Stefano did a great job with the entire production and all. And as he said, I totally agree that this is a team effort. So we put all our heart in there. We're a very small production, so if there's anything that he wants to confirm, he would ask my opinion, or Miles or any of the actresses. And also, as an actor, it's really important that you portray the role accurately. I didn't have much struggle in my role because I'm a single mom myself. Also, I'm a product of OFWs, so my parents left us when we were kids, and then they took us back to Hong Kong. So I'm born in the Philippines, but partly raised in Hong Kong. So for me, the character that I portray is totally relatable in my real life. But with the entire the story, I really appreciate Stephanos because he managed to portray every single character accurately with the help of the other actresses as well. In terms of the languages, I do speak Tagalog, but I'm not very confident if it's the right Tagalog because we know that it's really hard to translate things together. So we seek help to other people as well. Even Miles and I struggle when there's words that we're not sure about. So I think with working, but also just to share a little bit of, I do help domestic workers in Hong Kong. I love doing sorry, I'm shaking right now. I've been doing this so many times, but every time I'm in front of people, I don't know, I run out of words and I started to talk, whatever. But yeah, I'll try my best. So I do help domestic workers in Hong Kong. I've done a lot of charity works, and I think that they are the modern heroes of the Philippines. Every time I speak this, I become emotional. They left their families in the Philippines to be able to provide food. They left their kids in the Philippines to take care of other kids. So I think it's a really big sacrifice to be able to provide something on the table. As Mal said, there are not much options in the Philippines. If the government has other options for this woman, they wouldn't be able to leave their kids in the Philippines and spend time with them. I remember one of the role that says that it's not about birthday, graduation, or any other special occasions. It's about being there, being present, and coming from OFW parents. I've struggled so much when I was a kid because I don't know if there's anyone who really cares for me. So I think my emotion is coming from a daughter and a single mom as well. And I know for sure a lot of people can relate to this.
Thank you, Saiza.
I truly appreciate that Steph made this film where the cast are majority are Filipinos. Since in Hong Kong there's not a lot of films that involves Filipino talents. Yeah, and we're truly grateful for the opportunity to share our talent and also share the message that the movie has.
And I think the stories like Saiza's are so much more common than people realize, and that's why this film felt like a miracle just to get here, because we've had this conversation so many times with so many people, and thank you. And the community was very willing to share these things, and that's the responsibility that I felt, and I continue to feel. And we're excited about the film, but we're also tired. It's been a lot of work, but we won't stop. We keep pushing it because there are people who feel, not just Saiza who feels this way. There's many people who are who have these same feelings, and no one cares. No one asks them, which is I've never understood why not.
Also, to add on to that, it's like a unforgotten community in Hong Kong. There's like thousands of female on a Sunday, on a Saturday, whether it rained or it shined, they were outside. They don't have places to go and spend their day off. These women are working like 24 hours every day, and they only get Sunday off. And even if it rains or it shines, there's protests, there's COVID, they're there to fight. They're there to enjoy the 24 hours that they have for their day off. And I really salute them because they don't have any outlet. So the thing, we don't dance for nothing, it's already a message out there. Like, no matter what trouble or problem in life, we just dance, we just do karaoke. That's how a Filipino actually, forget about problems. Sing, dance, tomorrow, it's another day. So, yeah, thank you so much for being strong, community.
Thank you. I'm really glad that this film is able to extend the conversation as well, so it doesn't just remain in one screening, but it's able to have all these sparks of conversations. Maybe at this point of time, I would like to open the floor to any questions. If you have a question,
Okay, hi. I used to run a Facebook page about Hong Kong is disappearing. It stopped when the National Security Act was implemented. But earlier to that, I would understand how you guys feel. But do you still remember the 2010 Manila hostage crisis? A lot of the Hong Kong people actually guessed. But the moment when the late President Aquino smiled on the national TV and it captured on Hong Kong, my Hong Kong friends who care for the domestic workers, right, actually they were felt being left in the lurch. So it's this kind of coldness, this distance. And you have to understand that for Hong Kong, or even like Singapore, we pride on efficiency so much that anything that stands between efficient, we would distance with it. And Hong Kong is so much faster and so much fast-paced. So I can understand how you guys actually feel, because when I travel to Hong Kong at least once per year before COVID, I went down Sunday to Central to Wan Chai to have a feel. And I just want to say that your guys will have to understand why the Hong Kongers feel this way, because there's this hurt in 2010 that never been bridged. And I think people, particularly the families who were lost in that incident, will want an apology from. I don't think the the president will do this, but I think from the Filipino community, and also the gap I think between Hong Kong, Singapore, and the Philippines is actually the language, because I have a Filipina girlfriend, used to have. Okay, so yeah. And mabuhay.
You said it.
And there's sometimes that I can't relate, but I know how you guys speak, because my girlfriend has been spending tens and thousands of USD dollars, almost like in 3 months to go to support to the Philippines. And with that, me came from a Singapore Chinese family. If you want to have this into my family, the first thing we think is those cultural differences. And we're always afraid that my kids will be Catholic. If you grow up, we taught this thing and it doesn't go south. And it's the same thing for many of the Hong Kong, many of the Singapore thing. Yeah, so that's my
Thank you
experience.
for your comments and
Yeah,
thoughts.
that's all.
Okay, is there a question or is it
No,
just
I
a
think it's
sharing?
because I don't have any questions, because the questions will not be answered. Because I watched the film, yes, it's there.
Okay, then
Yes.
yeah, I think the team will be happy to engage after the screening as well. They'll still be around here. Are there any questions on the floor, please? Hang on.
Thanks. Really glad you made this film. Also really glad you brought it to Singapore. So there's a lot of, maybe we heard a little bit about it just then, but there's a lot of parallels between Singapore and Hong Kong. Obviously there's a lot of domestic workers here. I know you guys haven't been here for very long, but have you noticed any similarities or differences in terms of, I don't know, the attitude of people or things like that?
There's a lot of similarities from Hong Kong and Singapore, I believe, but one thing that for sure, they're more welcoming. Like since we got here, they're very nice, well organized. So thank you so much for the Film Fest organization. They're welcoming, very relaxed. Everyone in Hong Kong is just, we're fast. Like we move fast here. Everyone's so welcoming. They're so nice to us, and we're so grateful for it. But in terms of the domestic workers in the community, we've tried to invite a few of them here as well. I'm not sure if they're here.
We're also
They're here.
yeah, welcome. Represent. Actually, we're doing a private screening tonight for a migrant worker dance group, Filipino group. But this morning I went out to try and talk to some folks, but it was raining, so it didn't really work out. But yeah, there are. I see the parallels. I don't know much about Singapore. It's my first time here, but it does feel a bit more calm than Hong Kong, and it feels a little bit less dense in terms of just all the people in one place. But I think I would love to spend more time and really feel out how that works, because Singapore is obviously so multicultural, and there's so many. I've heard a lot of things about how it might look really perfect, but then underneath there's a lot of issues. I'm sure you're all aware.
I think there's another question up there.
First of all, I would like to say thank you for making this film. As a Chinese who used to live in Hong Kong and now living in Singapore, I think this is a movie that this is a group of people that I've always been interested in, but I don't know if there is any cultural representation, like film or TV, that I can look into it yet. So that's something intrigued me when I see the title, the intro. Yeah. And also for the political background in this movie, I think it's very interesting to see how you portray Filipino domestic helpers see Hong Kong in that scene. So also want to know more about maybe what's the general opinions from domestic helpers in Hong Kong, and also what's your mindset of how to portray this in the movie. Yeah.
That's a great question. Yeah, I mean, from my point of view, I thought it was interesting how because of that density that I mentioned, everything is always in one place in Hong Kong and Central. The protests were the biggest on Sundays. That's their day off. You have people dancing and eating on mats, and then there's tear gas and protests, the block next to it. I got the sense myself that there wasn't a clear, pro-protest, anti-protest view in that community. It was more of it's almost like there's levels of freedom. And if you don't have a more basic form of freedom, you're not going to start thinking about political freedom or democracy. I think they were on a level where they're just trying to survive. They're just trying to not get abused, and just some of their passports get stolen. Some of them are starved or beaten. So they have a much more pressing issue, many of them. And I definitely heard a lot of people just complaining about, why do they have to do this here? When we gather, they say racist things and they try to kick us out, and this is our only day off. Why can't they do this somewhere else? But then also you have people who sympathize. So I didn't feel a clear leaning.
There are a lot of discrimination issues with domestic workers, especially during the height of the COVID, wherein domestic workers were told to be tested for COVID, and then they were not allowed to go out of their house during their day off, wherein their employers can go outside freely. But then, of course, they will not complain at all, because they're just thankful that they have jobs. And then, and also the bad thing is, while the world is praising their resiliency during these times, it's also bad that our government is using this resiliency so that they continue with their corruption, and that they could just continue ignoring. And I hope with this movie, a lot of people, especially around the world, will understand the Filipinos, and also maybe enlighten our fellow Filipinos out there that we don't deserve this. We deserve so much more. We deserve to enjoy the basic rights, and we should have, and these women should have the choice to go out of the country and leave their family, or stay there. So I hope that our government will make programs for our OFWs so that they don't have to make these choices. Because even for me, as a daughter of an overseas Filipino worker, until now, it still hurts me every time I see kids crying in the airport. Until now, I still feel the pain that happened before, and I don't wish that would happen to other kids.
Maybe we have time for one last question from the audience, or maybe we can.
Hi, good afternoon. Hi, my name is Bing, and I'm a domestic worker here, and I'm also a volunteer advocating for my fellow domestic worker. And I just want to answer his questions earlier, the difference between, the domestic worker here and domestic workers in Hong Kong. As Siza said that, in Hong Kong, domestic workers have 24 hours off day, and feels like sometimes nobody cares about that. But, they were outside and they can do whatever they want. But the domestic workers here, most of them don't have 24 hours off day. I mean, we're lucky if we can go out every Sunday. I mean, I can go out every Sunday. But many domestic workers here don't even have an off day. And it's sometimes, even if they will only have 5 hours on Sundays. And sometimes we feel like we want to be like someone, like domestic workers in Hong Kong. We want to be like them, and we always say that they are lucky. But, these two are different countries, and I think many domestic workers are happy here too. We do our own dancing here. We do our own volunteering. We're happy. But yes, you are right that many domestic workers, many women around, especially the OFWs, they left their family just to, provide for their children. Like, for me, I'm a single mother. And I've been here for 27 years. I just told my kids that I'll be away for 2 years, but it's been 27 years and I have my own grandchildren and I'm still here. And it's not easy, I mean, leaving them every year is still like, there's a crying time at the airport. And now I just want to ask, like, you as Miles and Siza. Miles, you're so good in doing that. I mean, portraying like how you cannot leave the children, and I really felt it. Many domestic workers really are doing the same thing. Even they are abused, even their employers are not good. But when they look at their children of their employers, they cannot even leave them. But they left their own children. And I just want to send this message to the most employers here that look at the hearts of your domestic worker. And now my question is like, how did you get that feeling of, I mean, you two are so good. And how did you portray that with your heart? How did you portray that with your heart? Like, you two, I felt that you two are domestic workers itself.
In terms of acting, I will not be able to use the lives of domestic workers as my motivation. For me, I really studied the script line per line. I even spent time with Stefanos, like really asking him what does he mean by this, so that I can relate the script with my own life. And I think it worked because I used my own story as my own motivation, and that's why it felt genuine with me as well.
Same thing goes to me. As I said earlier, I'm a single mom. I'm a product of OFW, so I think the emotions are coming through my personal experience in life, but also Stefan is there for us. Like, he's always guiding us, yeah, and I'm a very emotional person, so yeah, you can see I'm already crying right now.
I guess as time is wrapping up, we'll have to end the Q&A here. I know there were a few more questions, but the team will still be here after the screening, so you guys can come and chat with them. Any last words?
I mean, thank you for staying. Thanks for this conversation. That's the most valuable part, I think. So it's appreciated.
Thank you, everybody, for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.